entirely focused on the application of ethical rules and ethical conduct by candidates and office holders. And the amendment, as I understand it, and perhaps Mr. Sessions can explain it further, is to stop members perhaps on the floor or in other places acting unethically for their own personal profit. That what they are doing that would be stopped by this bill is to stop people from running campaigns from the floor of the House. And so I would argue the substantial effect of this bill is to advance the ethics laws of South Carolina to stop the nefarious practice of undermining the integrity of this body for purposes of their selfish campaign motivations.
Welcome back.
I think that hit the nail on the head.
Huh? we had a busy week.
We did. How'd you like the comments by Representative Caskey there to kick off the show?
Yeah, man, it was, it was my first time in the well, besides just some intro. Well, second time.
You've been up there before.
Well,
first time arguing a bill.
Yeah. Intros and that sort of thing. We did have the school district thing with Representative King in our first year. But, yeah, that was my first time really just,
First time arguing for one of our bills.
Having a good time with our colleagues in the House.
Oh, yeah. Well, and just to explain to the listener, we mentioned about our bill to stop people from running campaigns on the floor and why we thought that is crooked.
Yeah.
I don't know another way to put it.
Well, we agree that everybody's got to make a living, but, we just don't want folks like myself. I'm in construction. We don't want me bidding on state contracts while from the floor and then voting on the budgets that then fund them, right? So just to try to alleviate conflicts of interests and worse, corruption of public office holders, we said, hey, if you want to be a senator or a rep here in the State House, you cannot run political campaigns for personal compensation.
Right.
So, and the funny thing was, prior to the amendment being submitted, we had several Freedom Caucus members, Chair Adam Morgan, I believe Representative Joe White, all agreed.
Before it was an amendment that they felt might hurt their buddy.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, folks, if you want to go back and look at it, I think it was about 2.5 hours into...
2 hours and 10 minutes whenever you started talking. So I would go back to about 2 hours to where you're actually hearing Adam and Joe and April all argue all of these same points of how people should not benefit from sitting on the floor.
And literally you and I kept looking at each other because when we put the amendment on the desk, we were considering a bill about sponsored by Representative Wetmore out of Folly Beach. And we heard from 3 to 4 Freedom Caucus members talk about this thing of sitting members can't personally benefit. When there's an opportunity to do wrong, we should alleviate that. All of these things. And literally, I'm like writing down on my paper.
Yeah.
Because I was like,
which I still supported Wetmore's bill.
Yeah, this is totally supporting our amendment.
Yeah.
And so that's why when I introduced it, I said, and I hope that you can join me in supporting this because you guys just said everything that meets the goal of this amendment.
Yes.
But unfortunately, they didn't.
Right. But according to the state newspaper, the article that just come out, Adam Morgan has no problem paying his brother and his company and his family's companies money to do things within his campaign. Yet he doesn't want a single parent, let's say parent, not man or woman, paying a licensed child care professional only during a campaign event through campaign funds, which I would imagine if your donors had a problem with you having to spend $50 on a licensed child care provider during an event, then they wouldn't donate to you.
Yes, correct. Well, that's just like what the two listeners probably don't even know that you and I could go buy a tie, right? I haven't worn a tie in like 15 years until I ran and won this seat.
I mean, that's what Nikki Haley got in trouble for, is buying all them clothes up in New York.
So I didn't realize this until this debate occurred about this bill and then our subsequent amendment. I didn't know that we can go buy a tie and file that as an expenditure. a legitimate expenditure because, again, you and I do not wear ties.
Yeah.
There's photographic evidence of this prior to us running for office. So, if you support a candidate and you notice they're spending $20,000 on suits and ties and this, that, and the other, you're probably going to be like, hey, this is getting a little ridiculous.
I'm not giving you money
Correct.
to buy your ties.
Yep, that's right. So what I think Representative Wetmore's bill's goal was to try to help, say, a single parent who is running for office, campaigning for office, but she needs a babysitter because she's got a young child at home or he's got a young child at home. And again, this child care provider would have to be licensed.
And only during a campaign event.
Yes. So
you can't pay for them all day long and everything else.
And again, it was pretty unique to see Freedom Caucus members arguing all these hypotheticals of corruption. But then when the amendment that we dropped on the desk started coming up for debate, all of a sudden they wanted to close all doors for any hypothetical or any opportunity for one of their members to do potential wrong. And
which Jordan Pace called for germaneness immediately.
Yeah.
Luckily, we had a couple.
You know what that is? That's called trying to shut down debate using the rules. Right. And again,
which, I mean,
it's legitimate.
To be fair,
that's right.
He won of the Speaker Pro Tem, our own York County person, Tommy Pope, saying this is not germane. Yeah. But it took a little bit to discern that, thanks to Micah Caskey's argument and thanks to Gil Gatch's argument.
Yeah.
And then we continued into some questioning. My favorite part of it was I believe that it showed how disingenuous Adam Morgan is. Because whenever he started questioning you at the end, and we'll get all these clips uploaded, he kept intentionally leaving out. He was trying to make it sound like you can't campaign against someone that's in there, tried to spin it as the loyalty oath, so to say.
Yes.
And he kept leaving out the words for profit.
Oh, for compensation.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, for compensation.
Yes. He listen.
He
when you don't
repeatedly said the lines like 3 times.
Yep.
And it's written on the board right in front of us. And the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm going, for compensation. Like, complete your sentence.
Hey, and the funny thing is, he's an attorney.
Yeah.
I tried to, because I saw his angle, I could see the path he was trying to go down. I said, listen, I'm not an attorney. I'll redirect that to an attorney at a later time because I didn't want him to waste my 10 minutes.
All I could picture was the cucumber from VeggieTales up there squirming.
Oh, man. So listen, when you don't have an argument or when you're on the wrong side of one, what you're going to try to do is bait and switch, right? You're going to try to get around the fact of, wait a minute, we're talking about essential conflicts of interest. We're talking about potential conflicts of interest. And then worse, we're talking about public corruption of a sitting member of the House. Now, again, that's just at worst, right? And all these hypotheticals that they love to scare their voters with, they don't want to talk about this one glaring potential to do wrong, as Representative Joe White says, right? They don't want to talk about that. What they want to talk about is what they want to say, oh, crap, this is going to make us look bad. Hey, let's talk about something else, right? Let's talk about, hey, they're going right after one of our leaders. They're trying to oust one of our sitting members. Hey, you know what? They're trying to silence our freedom of speech. No, we're not.
Or as Ryan McCabe said on X, the Uniparty just tried to force the loyalty oath on the entire General Assembly.
Yeah.
That's not what this is. Well, the loyalty oath, or so to say. Now, granted, to give the listeners a little bit of background, the reason that we even had rules to begin with, coming into caucus as freshmen, was because you have, and we will say a member that we were kind of arguing against with that runs campaigns for a living, sitting in a caucus meeting while we weren't there, and this is what we're told, and literally have a caucus discussion to say, this is what we need to get done. If anyone has a problem, come to us. Let us know. If you've got any amendments, let us know. We don't want to get surprised on the floor. And then that member is running a campaign against another freshman member at the time, running the opponent's campaign, and throws up an amendment and immediately goes out and puts it on a mailer. And he's using that inside information to go against that member to run a campaign. Well, and that is the corruption.
Yes. You're sitting in a caucus environment, and it has implicit confidentiality. And again,
you've got to discuss strategy.
Yeah, that's right. And when you say everybody's good with this is the path forward to get this bill passed, everyone says, yep, break, and then you go out and do something different. Again,
just as no one can attend a Freedom Caucus meeting.
Yeah. So
no one can attend a Republican caucus meeting.
Let's look at the hypothetical. That's right. So Republican caucus occurs. Everybody's good with the path forward. RJ gets to the floor of the House with the cameras rolling, throws an amendment, right? Just to help out the person whose campaign they're running, or the people. He throws out an amendment that he truly. Let's look at options A and B. RJ puts out an amendment to this bill that he truly believes in, right? And it gets voted down.
I would think that's great.
No. That's hypothetical one. He truly believes in it. He never really agreed to it in caucus, but he was overruled, right? So now he's saying, well, I want to expose what happened in the caucus meeting without breaking confidentiality. So I'm going to throw this amendment on, and it's going to show the divide, right? And he truly believes it. He truly believes in his amendment, and then it got voted down.
I'm fine. And not one time while we've been in caucus have I disagreed with what they're wanting to do and saying, hey, I can't support that.
Correct.
And, I mean, the perfect example was us funding the libraries.
Yes. So this is it. That's option one. Okay? And option two is Representative May in caucus says, yeah, everybody, I'm good. That's the way to do it. Hey, you know what? Candidate X is running against incumbent Y, and man, this is really going to be a great post mailer.
Not only that, I mean, he ran candidates against Micah. He ran candidates against Travis.
So, but just for the two listeners, so you now have the most optimistic view of what happened, and then the most negative view of what happened. And let's just say reality is probably somewhere in the middle, but here's the problem. Because he is a sitting member, while running campaigns, his opponents can call his credibility into question.
Right.
And that's what the goal of our amendment is to say, RJ, we don't want, Representative May, we don't want you to leave yourself open for that.
I wouldn't even say just Representative May. I'd say
it's
anyone.
Anybody who chooses to run campaigns.
I could choose to start running campaigns for a living.
That's correct.
I'm currently unemployed, and my background is advertising and marketing.
Yes.
I could choose to start a consulting company.
Yep.
I'm taking something that I could do off the table as well, because I believe that it is disingenuous the way that it's being done right now.
Yeah, correct. And again, if we want to talk about the public trust and the public perception of what we do, we don't want our credibility called into question. So we talk about this is the Freedom Caucus has been right in lockstep with us when it comes to, and I'm talking about Representative Guffey and Representative Sessions on judicial reform, right? We don't think lawyer legislators should sit on JMSC. Why? Because the potential conflict of interest that the lawyer legislator has while sitting on JMSC to filter the judges that come out. Okay, we're using the same rule just now to campaigns.
Yeah.
And for some reason it's different. It's different.
Well, it's funny. We can't pass judicial reform according to them because we have so many attorneys in the House. Well, this is something that we're saying is a direct conflict, and yet right now you only have one member of the House that I'm aware of that does this for a living.
Yeah.
And yet those same people are the ones fighting against this happening because, and truthfully, they feel like their friend is being attacked. I understand
that too.
But we're there to represent people, not make friends. And whenever it comes down to what I need to do with my conscience, or whether you are mad at me or not, I'm going to make sure that I am doing what is in my conscience first.
Yes. Well, that's what's great about, I think, you, myself, and other freshman members especially. And I'm not saying we're an exclusive group, because there's probably members who've been here for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms who are in the same boat. I just don't know them as well as a lot of our freshmen. Man, we can disagree wholeheartedly and still say, hey, man, let's go grab a sandwich after session.
Dude,
We
I
don't
bust Thomas
take-
Beach's balls all the time, and
Yeah.
he busts mine. Going back and forth. This is not personal.
That's right.
RJ's going to take this as personal,
Yep.
and to me, truthfully, RJ ran my opponent's campaign.
Mm-hmm.
He spread false information, such as I tried to defund the police. I had rumors spread about my son, who's no longer with me. I had rumors spread within the community. I had nasty text messages sent. It was an unethical campaign
Right.
that was ran. He is still, as far as I know, he's running the ladies north of in Fort Mills campaign.
Yeah.
But just last year, he was running someone against Travis Moore, running someone against me. Now, I wasn't in the House, so I wasn't in caucus meeting.
Yeah.
I didn't benefit from that. He was running against someone against Micah Caskey. He was running Joe White's campaign, April Cromer's campaign,
Yeah.
Kill Martin's campaign. And
Yep.
he's getting 40. The word is that if you don't have $40,000, RJ don't take you in. So does he not benefit by saying Heath Sessions a swamp? Because that's another $40,000 I can put in my pocket. And if you're running campaigns for a living, and I max out on donations, wouldn't it? And if I'm running a campaign, wouldn't it be easy to just say, you know what, just pay me for a push poll?
Correct. Well,
I could put that to any campaign, or better yet, I'm the vice chair of the Freedom Caucus. Give me money to the Freedom Caucus.
Yeah.
And then we can divide it out however we want to.
well, and again, this is what I'm saying, this dual role, right?
Which is why we got to get the Porch Caucus going.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and again, so I mean, that's the point. And I know Representative May got a little butthurt about it. And listen, at some point, give it a little more time. I like to sit down. You and I and him could probably sit down and talk about it. Right.
Dude, I'll talk to anybody anytime.
I want to be able to work with all folks in that room to do good things
and
for the
RJ
state.
is one of those that if you look back, whenever RJ argues on the floor, I typically vote with RJ. Even though
he makes good points.
Yeah, I mean, we disagree on the way that he goes about things. And it's not even so much him, but whenever he's doing the argument on the floor, a lot of times he's very articulate. He's very good at what he does.
Absolutely.
And getting that message across. And therefore, I might not change whenever April gets up there and provides an amendment or Jordan provides an amendment. But RJ gets up there and says something. I'm like, you know what? He's like, I can't argue with him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
I need to support that. Like, that's correct.
And a little footnote to that story, after we had this debate about the amendment, got ruled out of order, Representative Pace was the one who raised the point of order and got that debate stopped. He then went with other members of the Freedom Caucus and went to social media and wrote their own story of my motivations, your motivations, and this, that, and the other. And, you know,
no way.
Yeah. And well, and so I think and folks will post these clips, but Representative May's company is Ivory Tusk or something.
Ivory Tusk Consulting.
Okay. And through public disclosures, you can see that his business, as of the time of the debate,
Which has been up more now.
Has been compensated a little over $1 million in this cycle.
Well, I think it was a little over $1 million since he's been elected.
Okay. Whatever that number is, I do not want to get the numbers wrong.
Yeah.
But go, folks, if you're one of the two listeners,
but if my
go
business,
go check yourself, okay? But Ivory Tusk Consulting and or Representative May has been compensated over $1 million at the time of the debate. Okay? That's the facts. That's what's been publicly disclosed by folks who have ran for public office.
Correct.
And that's not a fabricated number. So Representative Pace said some things on social media that personally attacked me and my character and my motivations. He said that we fabricated the numbers. He then said that I had made millions and millions of dollars off, or maybe it was just $1 million off of the Carolina Panthers taxpayer-funded debacle of a project. And then he brought up the third point that said you had a personal axe to grind. And I even said, because I'm fully transparent.
Has he not met me? I got an axe to grind with everyone.
And so, full transparency, I go to Representative Pace on Thursday morning, I think, or Wednesday morning, after our debate on Tuesday. And I said, hey, man, listen, I think you're a smart guy, you're articulate, and I think you've got a future here in the state of South Carolina serving your people down at Berkeley, Dorchester County. I said, but what you put on social media is inaccurate, and you're attacking my character personally. I'm going to ask you to take it down. And so we had a very good conversation, and I said, listen, 2 out of the 3 points are factually incorrect. And so we went through those. How Ivory Tusk has been paid,
compensated,
have been paid. He has not profited.
Yeah.
He didn't put $1 million.
You corrected me on the floor whenever I asked that question.
Yes, that's correct. He didn't put $1 million in his pocket, but he has billed his clients over $1 million.
Yeah.
Number 2, I did not make millions and millions of dollars or $1 million off the Carolina Panthers project. My company actually lost money on that project.
And you were a private citizen, not an elected official.
I was, and I also provided him the financial documentation to prove it right then and there. And he said, really? And I said, this is my accounting software. This is the reports. Here you go. I then said, but point number 3, that Representative Guffey had an axe to grind, that's probably true.
Yeah. I don't like being lied about. Whenever you try to say that I tried to defund the police, well, you lost all credibility.
Yeah. So
between whether that's him or Elizabeth Enns, either one.
Yeah. So
both of them are disingenuous.
As Meatloaf sang about, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And so he said, hey, you know what? I really appreciate you, enlightening me. I'll take it down. So credit to a Freedom Caucus member and Representative Pace that he was able to see that he made maybe not the best decision in posting that stuff, and he took it down.
Ryan McCabe took down his comments.
Yep. And so my point is there's a future that we can work together as members of the South Carolina House of Representatives. Nope. Stop it. I'm an internal optimist. Our state motto is, as I, breathe, I hope. I'm going to keep hoping that we can work with all people. I thought so
until I seen a lot of the bullshit that come out over the weekend.
Well,
now I'm not too happy about it.
I have not seen any of that BS. And again, man, we just got to stay off social media, man. That is a bathroom wall.
Dude, that's where I was known as the Facebook candidate.
Oh, man. and again, there's a lot of bravery when you're not looking a man in the face.
Oh, I agree. That's the reason I troll the people that don't use their action. I mean, that's one of my big problems with the Freedom Caucus. Whoever hides behind the South Carolina Freedom Caucus handle is a coward. Is a coward.
Maybe he's just an employee and he doesn't want.
I don't care. They've never been punched in their mouth. Think they can say whatever they want, and they hide behind that moniker instead of coming out in public.
So as Charlie
Murphy speak to me that way.
As Charlie Murphy says, he's a habitual line stepper.
Yeah, habitual line stepper. But and I want to point out one more thing. Very simply put, if it doesn't matter what my business, let's say I sell cars, I sell Ford, I sell Chevy, whatever it is, but every vehicle within the state is going to be a Ford or a Chevy, and we're forcing that to be there. And my business has been compensated over $1 million while sitting on the floor.
Voting for only the Ford or the Chevy that can be a state vehicle for state vehicle contracts.
Well, even if I didn't vote, the optics of sitting on the floor and having that influence and getting paid, even if I didn't vote, people would scream to the mountaintops.
Yeah.
And yet everyone that wants to defend the Freedom Caucus, and like some of the articles that come out, want to act like, oh, this was just trying to take down the leaders.
Well,
it's just a false narrative. It's more disingenuous information instead of truly listening to the points.
For some of those articles, I'd say follow the money.
Oh, it's funny. If you pay some people to advertise, that story might end up a little bit different.
Hey, man, anytime my name gets published in a publication, I would appreciate that reporter to call me for comment.
I never received any phone calls.
I didn't either. So, I'm a history major, so consider the source is what I always say.
I had one reporter talk to me in the State House, and I haven't seen anything come out on their network, but I told them that they probably needed to speak to you because you were the one that presented the bill. Even though it was both of our amendment, you were the one that presented it.
I had a state reporter to ask me for comment and stuff like that, but I haven't read any articles here in the last few days. But anyway, hey man, we were having so much fun. We jumped right into the episode and didn't even talk about sponsors. So 742 North, if you need workspace, desk space, Wi-Fi, or just a good cup of coffee, give 742 North a try.
And Comer Distributing. And today's beer is Sycamore.
Southern Girl.
Southern Girl.
Blonde ale with vanilla. And, woo! If you like vanilla ice cream, baby. It's like cream soda, ain't it?
Yeah.
I can do one of these.
I was about to say it tastes like high school smelled with all the vanilla, but then I figured that wouldn't sound good. And I still said it anyway.
But I still said it. So, yeah, man. So what is this, episode 15?
I don't know.
I think so,
I
man.
say we just quit counting.
Yep.
Let's just do it.
Yeah, man. So I tell you, we talked about...
and we're going to have a few little special episodes, too.
Yeah. So, yeah, just for the two listeners, we've got some races coming up here for the state Senate. We talked about that debate down in...
3 members in the state Senate there.
Yep, candidates for the Senate. Yep, there's also a couple of House races north of the river in District 66.
Being pints in politics.
Yeah.
Do we want to invite Democrats on as well?
Listen, I think this is a good platform opportunity to inform voters. So,
right. I wouldn't be opposed to having Republicans or Democrats. We might not agree with them.
Yeah.
But I think similar to the bourbon in the back room
come on,
field,
man.
like we can have our disagreements, but ultimately it's allowing those people to share their message.
Yeah, as long as they're not running against us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I don't know who. Well, I know Matt up in the House district, so and we don't know what the sheriff's race is going to be because filing doesn't end until Wednesday at noon.
Yeah, so we're talking about the sheriff's race that gained a lot of, especially local attention, and we saw it in the Charlotte news. I mean, yeah, man. So
Charlotte statewide. I mean, it's been a big story. We have 4 candidates. We have Beth Tolson, wife of our beloved Kevin Tolson, our current sheriff.
Yep.
We have Heath Clevenger, who had 21 years on SWAT with York County. And we've got Tony Breeden, who used to be with the city of Rock Hill as well, just recently retired. And Chris Blevins out of Western York County, who's retired, operates multiple businesses. All of these candidates, I think for the most part, are well loved.
So it sounds like we're going to have Talladega going 4 wide for the sheriff's race.
Well, and there
in the
still
filing
could
period.
be 2 more to enter from what I'm understanding.
Wow, man.
I'm hearing 2 more names.
I tell you, before we get into all that, that tells you the respect for Kevin Tolson.
Yeah.
Because prior to all this,
and I think
all those folks supported Kevin. You know what I mean? You and I supported Kevin.
Yeah.
And
it's not that I'm anti-Beth or anything else. I promised Clevenger 3 years ago whenever he said, I'm going to run after Kevin's done. And I said, absolutely, you got my support.
Well,
and then, I'm great friends with Tony Breeden. I love the Tolsons. I love the Clevengers. I don't know Blevins as much as I would like to, but I can tell you I haven't heard anyone say anything negative about him.
Yeah. Hey, I tell you. So that's the great thing about competition.
Yeah.
Right? We're giving voters options, good options from what it sounds like.
Options from what I'm hearing.
So, and let me speak personally to this. This podcast was used in some local news coverage of this stuff. And I think it sort of got skewed that...
We didn't send it to the news.
No. But everything that we say here when we post it, it's public. So.
Yeah, it's public.
And again, I stand by that. That's fine. But I think it got misconstrued that I was pro another candidate besides Beth Tolson or whatever. And I don't mean to give off the impression that I'm supporting any one candidate. I don't know who I'm supporting in this primary race at all. We'll wait till filing period's closed.
There's any supporting.
Yeah. We'll wait till filing period's closed, and then I'll make up my mind when I sit down and talk with these folks.
Yeah.
Which, voters should do for themselves. So hopefully we can get these folks on and give them 5-10 minutes to just reach out to voters through the podcast. And voters can be better informed when they go to the polls here in June.
Yeah, and I think that would be good for us to kind of get together, whether it's both of us, whether it's one of us, and just have each candidate on the podcast, not only for York County Sheriff. I understand there's a couple of the women up in Fort Mill probably don't want to hop on the podcast with me. That's fine. They can hop on with you. Keep it a little bit more neutral.
Well, and so just for
but I've dubbed their crowd as not the mean girls because of the way that the crowd's attacking, but they're not standing up and doing anything.
In fairness to the candidates, it's not them, right? It's maybe some of their supporters.
But
Again,
their supporters
in
can't
fairness.
fight their battles on the floor. That's my problem.
Yeah. So just to make sure voters know, and when I say 1 or 2 listeners, I'm just assuming those 2 listeners are in York County. So primary day to go to the polls is June 11th.
They're not in York County because the South Carolina Federation of Women came to the State House today, and every woman come up saying, I'm the number 2 listener and all. So everyone that gets mad at me and comes up to me and says, hey, I'm number 2, like.
But here's the thing.
That's Heath's thing.
Folks got to understand, June 11th is when we go to vote in the primary, right?
Yep.
All right, early voting starts before that. So that is 2 Tuesdays before that in May 28th. So early voting starts May 28th. So folks, mentally make a note. You can start voting at your convenience between May 28th and June 10th. So go do it. That is right around time school lets out too, man. And so this is right now, speaking just to this sheriff's race, that's a 4-way race right now. So you know what that means? We're going to have a runoff, right?
I mean, and Bruce Bryant was here for 20 years.
Yeah.
Tolson 8. This is not something that comes along very often.
Yeah, right.
This is important.
Yeah, and so that race, voting begins May 28th to June 10th. You can go vote on primary day on June 11th. That runoff date is going to be June 25th. So, folks, if you're going to the beach, if you're going to the beach the week of the 16th through the 22nd or the 23rd through the 29th, which is the 3rd and 4th weekends of June, it's very important that you early vote in a runoff election.
Yes.
Because this is an election that matters. I mean, the sheriff's race is one of the biggest races, right? I mean,
yeah.
it covers the whole county. That's like, what, almost 300,000 people?
I just really hope that the sheriff's race stays above board and it doesn't turn into this hateful race like that's going on up north right now, and that these candidates understand that regardless of who takes that position, our law enforcement must rally behind.
Yes.
They have to fall behind the leader. And that requires us not attacking each other personally. We can stand on differences philosophically, but these people, with the exception of Beth is the only one that has the experience of politics, with that being her father and her husband being in politics.
Oh, right.
The rest of these guys, remember, they've served the majority of their career in law enforcement.
Yes, correct.
They're not used to being PC.
But not a public office holder, yeah.
They're not used to being PC. They're used to being straightforward, black and white. This is what the law says. This is what I enforce.
Yep.
And doing the best job they can and not worried about what the outlook is. They're not the ones out there raising money. They don't have experience in all that.
Yeah. I think this race will be interesting because I will be listening because all these folks are superior. They have a superior background in law enforcement, right?
Yes.
I mean, literally the cream rising to the top from our sheriff's office, right?
Well, sheriff's office or city police department.
Yeah, correct. So I think what's going to differentiate the winner eventually is going to be their priorities. Their priorities and what they think the voter cares about the most, and then how do they communicate that? You know, so I heard Heath Clevenger talk about when he went and filed in a news report about just his community engagement and making sure we keep those lines of communication open, and talking about it's not just a daily thing, it's just a behavior, you know, of a sheriff's office. And I totally agree. You know, as being a leader in my business, Just because you're the boss, you can't just point and say, hey, we got to go here. You got to help folks along too who maybe wander off the path.
You got to lead from the front.
That's right. Or be willing to go to the rear and follow to make sure everybody's staying on the path, And so I think that was a good message. And so we'll see. I haven't heard a lot from the others. I have seen signs already.
I mean, I'll tell you, man, I talked to Tony Breeden and Heath Clevenger at minimum once a week.
Yeah.
I mean, these are good friends of mine. Both are great, solid dudes. And it's hard being in that race because I have so much respect for the Tolsons and then them being in it.
Oh, I know.
And then now you've got Blevins, and there's not a single person that said anything negative about Blevins. And it's even the candidates I speak to, like, all speak high. But then coming from the rumor mill within the community, and it's typically the supporters of one candidate that starts most of this garbage. Just the rumors and stuff going around. You hear that this person's going to come in and they're going to fire everyone. Well, there's not been a candidate that I've spoken to that has said that's any way remotely true.
Right. That's not their priority.
There's been, oh, well, do you know about this has happened or this has happened? What I know is I know each one of these candidates, Beth, Heath, Tony, and Chris's character is not something that I'm putting into question.
Yeah. Hey, I tell you, like I said, when we talked about this last episode, we talked about how sort of the perception of some impropriety as far as the filing stuff. And we both said it was, hey, and that's another thing. Let's give our local GOP some credit.
I didn't think they would do it.
I thought they did the right thing.
Yeah.
I thought they went in and said, hey, you know what? The appearance of this isn't the best, and we need to reopen to make sure that whoever is seeking this office doesn't walk in day one with, a ding on their credibility.
And I don't often agree with our current leadership in York County GOP.
But
I thought that they opened it fairly. I think that they allowed people to voice their opinions in the way that they needed to, and that is what we want.
Totally agree, and that's why I'm pointing it out. Yeah. That's why I'm trying to say, hey, kudos to them. I thought that they made the right decision, and I think it was, there was probably 60 or so folks in there voting.
I had to put on my endorsement. I did not tell someone to run. I was not, influential in trying to get people to open it up. No, my phone started blowing up, and I have no influence over the York County GOP and what they do.
No.
So there was nothing of that nature. I tried my best to stay out of it, and I knew Clevenger was going to run regardless of whether it's independent or whether it opened up.
Right.
I didn't foresee all these other names popping in once it opened up.
Yeah, wow, man. Well, we will we'll reach out to these folks and see if we can get them on the show and give them the opportunity to communicate to voters. So
now other candidates, I haven't really spoke to Randy Liggins' opponent, the younger kid. He was a page last year.
Yep.
That's running. Elias, I believe is his first name, but I don't want to slaughter his last name. I'm not the best at these enunciations. We got Randy. Then you've got a Democratic opponent.
Yep.
So let's nix the having Democrats on. I don't want to bring. I think Wes has an opponent, independent or Democrat
Alliance Party or something.
Okay. I escaped without an opponent this time. We've got Jackie Terabile versus Michelle Branning north of the river.
Yep.
And we've got David Martin and Elizabeth Enns to the east of the river. I know the York County Conservative Club was trying to hold a debate because the York County GOP, which Elizabeth runs the women's group up there in the Morning Star area, was wanting to have the debate up there. So, York County Conservative Club said, hire it neutral, bring in a neutral moderator. And I believe that Enns and Jackie said no thanks to that. And so it's already dividing between David Martin, Enns, Branning, and Jackie. So that has been That has been an absolutely disgusting race between Jackie and Michelle. I have never seen such an ugly campaign ran than what Jackie is running right now immediately out of the gate. Since I've been involved in politics, I've never seen such a nasty campaign without hearing the positive that a candidate can do. And that becomes a problem.
You know, I got a chance to talk to her in the lobby.
And I'm very disappointed in many of our local leaders that went ahead and endorsed and seen that this is the type of campaign that is being ran.
Well, it's not the first time that a campaign's gone negative early. But again, in all fairness, if Jackie Terrabil would step out and say, "Hey, folks, let's keep it to policy. Let's keep it to the issues. Let's keep it to my priorities and talk about my platform as a candidate."
Yeah,
you know, that would be I think a welcome reprieve. But again, those supporters don't have to, you know, abide. You know, they can, as the Big Lebowski would do. But
that dude doesn't abide.
So again, I would love to have a conversation with her, whether it's on the show or I even welcome her to a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Well, I tried to talk to her at the State House this past week whenever she was there, but they were in a hurry.
Yeah, they had to get over it. Yep. But so, and again, that invitation's open to her. I don't believe
that she's dodging me or anything. I've tried calling since then. I wanted to offer some advice before it got too ugly, and then I keep seeing it just keeps getting uglier and uglier and uglier.
Well,
and I think, to me, you know, I was trying to kind of stay out of the race.
Yeah.
And then whenever the local GOP sent out their message, which if I was Michelle Brannon, I would file a lawsuit against the GOP party for their comments coming. I would FOIA every email coming out of the local party. And then I would use that in the lawsuit. I would do the same thing with Moms for Liberty, which is not supposed to endorse. And they are a nonprofit as well. And as the way that they have operated, and I understand they all want to back up Jackie, but if you're going to be a group, you have to follow those guidelines that are within the group.
Well, like I said, it's a mess already, as our colleague Representative Mike Neese would say. It's a mess.
That's the other thing. Brandon Newton has a former member running against him. So it's going to be, I mean, there is a huge amount of challengers.
Yeah, man.
This race.
Which, you know, as our friend Ralph Norman says, iron sharpens irons. Competition is often good, and you know there's benefits in that. And I have a challenger, and I look forward to contrasting my positions and the way I look at the job as legislator or representing the district here in Rock Hill. So I think it's an opportunity to communicate and differentiate yourself.
Yes.
You know, as a candidate.
Oh, and trust me, this is my first time not being in an election or a runoff.
Right. So
I feel lost at times.
And so I think, again, as our Congressman Norman says, competition can be good, you know?
Yes.
So I would tell every candidate out there who's running for a public office, it's an opportunity. Find your voice, speak your priorities, and, you know, introduce yourself.
I just hate seeing Republicans beat up on Republicans.
Well, you got to stick to
policy. That becomes a problem. Yeah. Right? And whenever you can't, it makes me question whether you can be a leader.
Well,
that is a major problem of mine. Yeah. And that's what I would encourage everyone in the sheriff's race to remember.
Well, and again, I think, you know, PSA for all those candidates out there, you know, big people talk about ideas, little people talk about other people.
Yes.
Right? And so stick to the ideas, stick to your policy, stick to your values as not only a candidate, but also a person.
Yeah.
Right?
And well, we've had people start coming after us just because of my comments on the podcast.
You're always getting me in trouble, Guffey.
They're grouping you in with me.
You know, it's the company I keep.
I'll tell you, I keep people on their toes. I will never be anyone's yes man. I can promise you that.
Yeah, me neither. I agree. So, man, so we got a busy week upcoming, not only on the floor and in committees, man, we got the Senate House softball game tomorrow night.
That was so much fun last year.
Yeah, man. Folks, if you don't know Tommy Pope, y'all should come to this softball game. Because
all he does is heckle the people.
Tommy Pope, yes, is the biggest heckler. He literally could have a side hustle as a color commentator for the MLB. I'm telling you.
Just of heckling. I remember whenever Case Bretton walked out and he's like, those are your mama's shoes.
I mean, so much fun. It's great to get senators and Senate staff out there, House members and House committee staff or House staff, and just have a good old time, you know?
Yeah.
I did not, you know, I was talking to another member, and they asked me if I was going to be playing. I said, absolutely not. They're like, why? And I said, because my competitive nature would force me to actually run out, you know, a base hit, and I'd end up injuring myself at my age. You know, pulled hammies.
I wasn't thinking about playing until you just said that. It's the opportunity to truck someone that stands in your way. I might get out there and try to release some anger.
Stop it. So yeah, on a lighter note, that's what we got, the softball game tomorrow at Seeger Park. So, and I think it's open to the public, man. Come out, bring your family and friends. Also, business-wise, we got judges this week.
Oh.
So we elected our Chief Justice, last month?
Yeah. And I'll be honest with everyone out there. I've committed to judges that I don't even remember who I committed to by this time because it's been delayed so long. Because as you're going through, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to swing support here. I'm going to swing support there. And the one rule that they have is once you commit, then you stick with it. So from now on, I will never commit to another judge prior to voting.
Yep. It's sort of like the idea that when we were freshmen and people were asking us to sign on to co-sponsor their bills.
Right.
And I'm like,
you're just signing on. I did.
No. You were signing on.
I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
I literally was like, does it have a hearing? They're like, not yet. I'm like, well, when it gets a hearing date, then let's talk. But right now, and again, our freshman year, we had so much coming at us anyway. We were like, CON, fentanyl trafficking, Gavin's Law. Those three things and doing my job as a legislator is enough.
Yeah.
I don't need to keep track of these 80 bills I've co-sponsored. So, that can get you in trouble sometimes when you're having an off day and not staying focused. But
and you can't even find out. It's almost impossible to find all the bills that you've co-sponsored because of all the resolutions and everything that get passed.
Yeah, right.
That the name of the House is put on.
So I went and dusted off my sheet, right, for judges. And I make a mark that's not a usual mark on my selection. And I kept that. That was like
I've got mine. It's just in piles of paperwork somewhere in my office. I don't know.
Yes.
With me moving my business and everything else, and I'm normally disorganized, but now I'm super disorganized.
Yeah. So I went out and dusted my sheets off, and I went through them and, you know, looked at who I had committed to, or even some of the folks I said I would count for, which for the two listeners, counting is you're not only supporting a candidate for a certain bench seat, you're also going around the room and trying to advocate for that candidate, and also, you know, saying, hey,
the only time you feel like a lobbyist in the state house.
would you like to meet this person?
Yeah.
You know, so
hey, just hear them out.
Yeah.
And I like this person, hear them out.
Yep. And a lot of times that's done on local races.
Now let's talk about the one controversial race.
All right, which one?
Is that James Smith, Richland, former member?
We also have the
Democrat.
Hilton-Kempson race.
Yeah, we got the Hilton and Kempson race too.
Yeah.
So does Smith have an opponent still?
No, he does not. That was the race that I believe there was 2 or 3 candidates, and all of these are nonpartisan, right?
Yeah.
But as someone who votes on judges, you can go back and look to see where they voted in a primary, or, you know, I mean, those types of things. So,
well, it wasn't just that. I mean, he was an elected member.
No.
So therefore, he's got a voting record.
In the instance of James Smith, He was, a long-time member of the House. I think he was actually minority leader.
But he had some...
So he's got a public record of where he stands on issues.
Especially be more pro-choice.
Yes.
Which a lot of people have trouble with.
Yep.
But he's not getting elected to a position where he's making a decision on life.
Yeah.
That makes a difference. The problem that I have is there has been this big push that just kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely under no circumstance do you vote for this guy.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know me, if you want me to do something, you best not tell me not to do something else.
I'm doing the opposite.
But bottom line is, it is a Democratic county that he's going to be representing. It is the only person on the ballot still left, and he's a Democrat, but he's also the only member to ever have a proxy because he was actually in war during it.
Yeah, that's right. So he literally, I think this proxy rule got set up for him.
Right.
Right? I mean, during everybody, unless you're, 5 or if you're 15 years old and you don't remember 9/11, right? And yeah, James Smith volunteered. And what's even more, what's really incredible about this story was, and don't hold me on the details, but he was an officer in the Guard or the Reserve. It might have been a Reserve. And he said, nope, I want to be on the front lines. I want to go
fight.
I want to get on the front lines and shoot and hold the people who did this to our country accountable. And
to me, it's hard not to respect someone like that.
No.
Politics aside.
I think it compels you to respect that person.
Yeah.
He threw off the captain stripes and went in and re-enlisted, went through boot camp as I think he was in his 40s.
But there was such a strong push to be against him, period.
Oh, right. So
and that's where I have a problem, because then I started looking like, why are all of these congressmen women, or why are all of these senators, and why are all these other people all against, like, do not support James? That's what the swamp wants you to do.
Yeah.
And that was the narrative coming at me. Well, then I started doing a little bit of digging, and come find out, he used to be law partners with Dick Harpootlian.
Mm-hmm.
Dick Harpootlian used to run the Democratic Party in South Carolina.
Yep.
He's the one leading the so-called reform on JMSC. But I can tell you right now, I don't know how much I trust Dick Harpootlian. And if this is coming from him with a personal grudge and all of these other people, it starts making me wonder, like, why am I listening to other people whenever they're trying to tell me about someone's character that fought for this country, put their life on the line?
So for me, I don't look at it as a character issue for me. And again, you're bringing up some information that until just now, I didn't know about. But in talking with James Smith a few times and sharing a cup of coffee with him, he came to my office early on. We talked. We have a mutual friend and who had introduced us. I think what folks have issues with on the conservative side of the aisle was where James Smith stood on
pro-life issues.
That's right. Now,
but the position he's running for has nothing to do with making those decisions.
Well, yes, potentially. The issue is I think, and again, it's this hypothetical, right? If he gets elected to this seat, what if he then seeks a seat on the Court of Appeals?
Well, I've got a different view.
No. I don't believe that, and I don't want to confuse the two listeners. I am just telling you
that's the narrative.
These hypothetical, narratives that.
But I can walk and chew gum at the same time.
We'll
I can distinguish between the two.
Yep. So here's the thing: James Smith served not only our state as representative, but also in the military, right? He then took off the rank of officer, re-enlisted in boot camp, and went and fought in Afghanistan. He asked the House to make a special rule to where he could give his proxy to another member while he went and fought in Afghanistan and hunted down the Taliban.
Right.
In my personal conversations with James Smith, I think they had over 200 plus kills, his unit. And folks, I'm not talking about he was, right outside a base of ours with air support and all these types of things. No, I'm talking like he was a member and a leader of like a unit.
Like Caskey.
That was maybe 12 members type thing with translators and some locals. And they went around and hunted down Taliban units, right? They went out there behind enemy lines and hunted them down. And once they would locate them, they could call in drones or artillery support to make sure they were killing as many Taliban or as many enemies as possible, right? This guy is a military hero. He received the Purple Heart, right? So he can be all of those things I just said, right? I mean, seriously, he's a military hero.
He'll still be a liberal.
That's correct.
But he is the only one on the ticket.
Yes, he is the only one on the ticket. That is correct.
And the reason I brought this up, twofold. Number one is I believe there's a big push on trying to push conservatives to just do not vote for him, and that you're a rhino if you vote for him, even though he's the only one on the ticket, to try and force us to go into an additional election for that seat and go back through these hoops, which I believe that we have. And then for two, the narrative of the backroom channels of there possibly being some type of deal worked out with Kempson's race and Smith's race, and trying to call that out, because I don't know where I stand on the Kempson race in comparison. I really need to find my sheet.
Yeah,
I
right.
went through, but Smith was the one that stood out to me, and there was that narrative that there was some type of trade-off there. And that's not what we want to be a part of. We're not there to be part of what people
was?
would what was or what is considered the good old boy network, or anything of that nature. And I understand politics is about compromise, but that's not the way that we get judges. We should be just choosing the best candidate and let the majority win, considering we are a super majority.
Yeah, so we're calling. I'm not even going to say we. I am making my decisions case by case for each race.
Right.
I am supporting Russell Hilton in that race against Kempson.
I believe that's who I listed on to, but I need to find my sheet because I'm going to have a lot of mad members.
I have sat down with him, and again, full disclosure, transparency. I went to school. I grew up with his wife just by happenstance. I didn't know Russell Hilton before this, but his wife.
She knew you.
Beth,
she's not a good choice of character.
Yeah, we grew up in Somerville together, and he is a lawyer based out of Ridgeville, but I came to know him through this process. I met him in January, and we talk a lot now. And I have just found him to be a good dude, someone that I think shares my values. Sort of sees issues the way I see them, views the judicial branch the way I do, as far as interpreting, and not legislating, and that is
most important,
huge to me.
Yeah,
and same thing when we were looking at the Chief Justice race. John Kittredge is the same way, and that's why he got our full support. Yeah. He looks at have
you met anybody that doesn't like Kittredge?
Man. No, I don't think so.
I mean, I really haven't. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, he's
good dude,
hard and fair.
Sharp legal mind, and he believes in the role of the judiciary. That's the way I do. Listen, in one of his opinions that I read, Tiffany v. somebody back in 2017, literally, you could tell that he took pains to say, legislature, this is not the court's job to legislate, right? We could see sort of your intent, but it's not explicit. So you need to go back and change the law. I mean, he was giving the legislature simple instructions that if you want tort reform, that's for your body, not our court.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, so agree and support that guy. So yeah, I think we're going to have a busy day in the joint session on Wednesday electing judges.
I just wanted to make sure that I called it out because we always talked about how we're going to be upfront and honest with our listeners. And I want people to say, you know what? This is where that they said, this is what they believe, this is what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Before we go in to vote for these judges. Because the narrative, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm probably going to be supporting Smith just based on that Harpoolian knowledge.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder where this push is coming from. I mean, Joe Biden gave Harpoolian's wife a position. That's how good of friends they are. So we want to talk about Biden putting his finger on the scale of something. That makes me worry a little bit over a personal vendetta and why we have so many people coming out.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm not throwing stones at Senator Harpootlian at all. Dick Harpootlian has been involved in the Democratic Party of this state for a long, long time. When I was a kid in college,
harder than Smith has.
When I was a kid in college, and I think James Smith was a member of the assembly when I was a page, I think Dick Harpootlian was a chair of the state Democratic Party back then. So, he's been around the block. So if President Biden appointed his wife as whatever the position was, man, that's from a long-standing position. I mean, think about it. Joe Biden's been in the U.S. Senate since the 70s, and probably him and Senator Harpootlian have known each other for a long, long time.
Right.
So
good friends.
Yeah, right. So again, we'll see how this thing fleshes out, so to speak.
But at the same time, let's put this out there. A lot of people that will say this is ridiculous in the way you're judging, they will judge Todd Rutherford based on who he represents, but Dick Harpootlian represents, Alec Murdaugh.
Yeah.
And they don't want to look at things like that. And I can understand defense attorneys have to defend people. But whenever we start talking about, even on the Democrat side, if you want to say James Smith was a horrible Democrat, well, Dick Harpootlian was leading during that time. So it's like, which is worse? And if that narrative's coming from one place, that makes me wonder, is this just a personal vendetta?
All right. But here's also the flip side of that. Let's say what you're saying is true. Let's just flesh that out.
This is the perception. But there's not but one person on the ballot.
All right. So let's say the perception is that Senator Harpootlian has a personal vendetta against James Smith. Okay, let's say that can be true. James Smith can be a hero, and I'm still
he can still be a big liberal.
Well, and just because of some of his policy positions from when he served, as it pains me personally, I cannot support him as a judge.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So all of those things can be true, and because I am pro-life, and
I'm pro-life.
No. That doesn't separate us. What I'm saying is those philosophical differences, that's a foundational one. And you and I could say, James Smith, you're a military hero. Thank you for your service. But I cannot support you in this effort to become a judge.
But let's have that honest conversation then.
Absolutely.
If that's the case, in what scenario for the position he is running for will have any, what role will his politics have any influence, considering it's a Democratic county?
Yeah.
If it was a race, it's going to go Democrat. This is a judge that is
the majority of the time.
Democrat, the only one left on the ticket. What harm is it going to do to put the person that represents that area the best? And they're not making pro-life decisions.
Yeah.
They're not making liberal decisions. And you're never going to get a conservative person in that position.
Yeah, I think the way one who is thinking like I am is that James Smith is a hero. He has served our state well, not only in civil service and also the military. Literally a badass. But I can't support him for a judgeship because, say in 6 years, a few more terms, I'm not around.
But you can give that opinion then.
But that member who represents Rock Hill doesn't know how, at this point in 6 years, if he's elected as a judge, Judge Smith has said to me personally, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm not seeking any higher, right? Bench seat. They don't know that. And then he does. And again, we're going down this path. I would never, James Smith has never given me any reason not to believe what he's saying, right?
But this is the same argument that those are against medicinal marijuana say. Oh,
Yeah.
well, this just leads to full legalization. One thing does not have anything to do with the other.
No, but
bottom line is we elect the people we want to represent.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is such an important issue, I would be sure to tell anyone that's taking over after me, hey, make sure James Smith doesn't move up.
right.
You know?
Yeah.
If he's going to stay in this position, I'm all for it because I would rather have a liberal war hero than just a liberal sibling of another legislature.
I agree.
Another legislator.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so, and again, that is some of the, and I don't know where the abortion issue, I can't not imagine all of the legal hypotheticals that could come about. You know, you got that case down in Alabama.
It's not going to county level.
No. You got that case in Alabama about in vitro and how that went. The state of Arizona just went back to some 19th century stuff. I mean, as far as like an 1894 rule or something.
Now you got federal people fighting to put it back on a federal level whenever all you said was states' rights. Like, what is wrong?
So because the issue of life and when it begins is such a hot button issue, is why I believe James Smith has gotten so much, his candidacy has gotten so much attention.
I can understand that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so,
but one thing does not have anything to do with the other.
So why it's so sensitive is because, you know, man, Roe v. Wade just got overturned here a little bit ago because of the Dobbs decision, right? And I think folks who, as far as on this issue of life, agree with us, man, we have been on the losing side of that argument since Roe was decided back in whenever it was, 72, 74, whatever. We've been on the losing side of that in the courts for so long, and then we finally, pro-life wins, right? And it goes back to the states. And we're like, man, now local state government can decide for ourselves. And you and I know we agree on this. We think that's the best idea because now on a state level, we have a heartbeat bill. We think that represents our people. Whereas New York can say, hey, up to delivery, which I'm like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? So localities in those communities can decide because they're going to elect folks like us and then we're going to make state law.
But what community is he being elected to?
I can't remember that seat.
Richland.
Yeah, so he'll be a Richland seat.
It is the Democrat area, and that's the only position that we're talking about. And whenever we start, to me, I feel many, while they might agree with the sentiment, whenever they know it is very disingenuous to say that one thing has anything to do with the other, one vote has anything to do with the other vote, I think that they are using this as a campaign ploy specifically for one caucus over another to say, we're going to come after you if you support this candidate, to which I raise two middle fingers and say, just because you threaten me, I might go that way.
Right. Well, and again, every side can tell their own story, right?
Yeah.
You and I on this show have the platform to communicate to folks who support us or don't support us, where we're coming from at least, right? And so I think you've done a good job with that. I have, like I said, man, this one's
philosophical differences. And I'm not judging you based on that. I'm just simply trying to lay out the narrative that could possibly come out in the future.
Oh, right.
Based on a decision. Now, I might get there and not vote for him.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm almost there. There might be some information that I'm unaware of.
Yeah.
But I don't know. My personality type is the more you want me to do something, then you should not try and tell me to do it the other way.
Yeah.
And do not threaten me in any way, because I will vote against an amendment or against a bill simply because a special interest group sent out an email saying this is being judged.
Well, or a certain caucus does, right? But again, to be
I
disciplined,
will never do well on a scorecard.
So, but in trying to be true to my values and where I come from, and this is just personal. I don't mean I'm from Somerville or Rock Hill or wherever. I'm just saying this is not geography. This is just where I come from. The life thing for me is that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know,
and I haven't shared my story, but yeah, I mean, it's
And
very
so-
important. I ran on county council as pro-life.
yeah, no. And,
Yeah.
and this is not to question where you're coming from either, or how you reason to your decision or potential decision, because it sounds like you're still, it's bacon.
Yeah.
You're still trying to hear all sides on this, and that's
I just don't believe the pro-life issue has anything to do with this seat. Future
Yeah.
seats, yes.
yeah.
But we're not choosing a future seat.
No, I agree.
We're not.
No, I
we're
hear you
not
on that.
saying kill Hitler whenever he's a baby.
Oh,
we're
boy.
talking about this is the stage.
No,
that
no,
we're
no.
at.
I totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like it's unfair to judge that this person's going to be so evil.
Again, so you and I have talked about this in the past. For me, it's a policies thing. It's not a personal thing. Like, I personally like James Smith. Him and I have.
I like us kind of disagreeing on something.
Yeah.
Like-
Him and I have had several conversations,
I might start playing devil's advocate from
and
now on.
man, and you and I went
Yeah.
because I was really ticked off about, again, the personal attacks that he received.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it ticked me off because I'm like, man,
That's
this
the way I
guy,
feel about them races up north right
this
now.
guy is a veteran. This guy is a badass. People have never heard that side of his story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just see that he had voted for some pro-choice policies in the past and said, nope, he's bought and paid for by Planned Parenthood. And nope. You know what I mean? And so, again, folks, it's more nuanced than that. Governing is more nuanced than that. It's
Well,
not.
according to some, you and I are bought and paid for by Planned Parenthood because we vote for the budget now.
Man.
And once you vote for the budget, you're voting to fund Planned Parenthood, even though we have an abortion law in place, and therefore you're funding. So just think about that. Think about the narrative on how it gets twisted. And that's the reason I'm still the Rage Against the Machine politically.
Yeah.
The more I'm always going to surprise you on which side I end up on.
Yeah.
Because as much as I feel like the wave is pushing one way, I'm going to kind of go back
Yep.
to say, hey, realize that just because you're in power, we'll use the current York County GOP as an example. Rumor is they want to choose the candidates that they're going to decide is good on the Republican ballot. To them, if they're in power, and let's say they're all Freedom Caucus minded or John Birch Society minded, right? They're only going to choose, and they're going to choose to endorse those John Birch Society members or those Freedom Caucus members in a primary, and therefore they're not going to support the other candidates. And whenever that happens, I want them to think about, okay, so imagine your view of the swamp, as they all hate on McKissick. McKissick's the local chair of your party, and you're trying to get more conservative candidates, as you view,
Yeah.
on the ticket, and you've got somebody putting their finger on the scale and saying, no, you can't control it. That is the fascist point of them trying to control, or the communists of saying you don't have a voice anymore.
Well, I listen. I think the Republican infrastructure and apparatus has been in place for a long time, and even when there's primaries, I think there's always a favored candidate. But they used to not say it, right?
I mean, it's written in the rules.
They would
not
literally
to
let
endorse.
voters decide.
Yeah.
And state chairs or even local chairs still had, some level of respect for other Republicans, right? And they would let voters decide. Give the folks who are running for said office a platform to communicate to their voters, and the voters would decide. I think now, just in our climate, man, and again, this is, I don't know the authorship of this or where it originated, but it's just gotten ugly where, like that Senate race. I think we talked about it when we covered that debate. There's 3 candidates down there that voters get to decide upon.
And if they put their thumb on that scale, you're going to tick off 2 others' followers
Yeah,
from ever listening to the party at all.
Yep, or that will sort of alienate
Right.
those candidates and their families and their social networks because as a party official, you decided to put your finger on the scale. And that's not what we should be doing. We should be encouraging the competition. We should be talking about ideas and policy that makes our state a better place.
And if you put your finger on the scale
the people
and
decide.
someone else wins,
Yeah.
will you ever have a relationship with that person? Or you're constantly battling?
Yeah.
I feel like I constantly battle the York County GOP. I mean, while the local party might not have endorsed,
Yep.
there was certainly a lot of the women's groups with me running against 2 women that it felt like that push was there.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm okay. I understand women's groups want to select women just as I believe that, a minority group might want to select a minority.
Yeah.
However, I do believe that's a democratic value.
Yeah.
I
So
don't believe as a Republican you should ever judge someone based on their race or their sex.
no.
Or their sexual preference. Like, if you're fighting for the Republican Party, how are you differentiating yourself if you're using race and sex to do so? That becomes my problem.
Yeah.
I feel like we fought so hard for equality as Republicans to get there
Yep.
that now we're trying to put our finger on the scale now that we're in power and we're ruining it all.
Back
And
up,
we're gonna
Terry.
Run, yeah, we're
Back
gonna
up, Terry.
Back it up, Terry. We're going to run everyone off. And while the Democrats have went far left, I believe we're going to start sending our people back over to the Democratic side.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's why we decided to do this podcast, because we want to
Yeah.
be transparent with the people. And so again, folks should let voters decide. The party
I'm
officials.
for freedom of choice. As the Republican creed says, it is my right to be uncommon.
Yeah.
Damn it, give me my right. All right. And the last point, like using our sheriff's race for an example, if the York County Sheriff's Department puts an endorsement in on one candidate, I mean,
York County GOP.
The York County
Yeah.
GOP puts their endorsement on one candidate.
Yep.
Just imagine the divide. To me, that would be the detriment of the party.
Yeah,
It
agreed.
would be the downfall.
Agreed. And again, that's why, while we can disagree with the folks who are running our local York County GOP from time to time, I want to point out
They did.
good job
Good.
with that,
Yeah.
with opening up that filing period. And again, I think that transparency restores credibility to that race. You know what I mean?
If you can make that decision without legislators like trying to call you and convince you and you're making the right decision, well, that instills a little bit of trust in me
Yeah.
that you're doing what's right
Yep.
and not what the people chirping in your ear is. And
Yeah.
ultimately what I want from a legislator is someone that can stand on their own and do what's right and without feeling the pressure from the crowd, because
Yeah.
the crowd can grow very quickly in the wrong direction.
Oh, boy. Yep. So a couple of other things. The medical billing transparency bill, the itemized bill,
Pass.
got it passed out of the House. It is now over in the Senate. It made it before crossover. So, hey, I get to
Be
join
your first law.
I get to join the ranks of Representative Guffey. He's on the podium already with getting a bill out of the House. I get to join you. Brandon Cox got to join you with the Smalls Monument, and also
Lawson.
Representative Lawson.
With his ambulance bill.
So the Porch Caucus, man, we've all gotten a bill out of the chamber.
We don't talk about it, we be about it.
Hey, good job, baby. But yeah. So another thing this week. You got anything else going on? You got Judiciary Committee?
I have not even caught up. I've got judiciary dinners. I've got people coming in town. Like, it's going to be a busy schedule.
So for folks, now that we are post crossover, we're going to be getting a lot of committee work with Senate bills, right? The push in the first half of the legislative year is to get House bills that originate in the House out of the House. The Senate is doing the same thing. And now we're starting to hear Senate bills and do our committee work with Senate bills, just like Senate committees are doing House bills, because we're about not just pre-filing bills or writing legislation, we're about passing laws. So,
So please quit emailing me with pass H number whatever bill, because crossover's done. There's not going to be a push for that. And if someone tells you that there is going to be a push, they're disingenuous to tell you that to begin with, because there's no chance of it becoming law.
Folks, there's a lot of things that we didn't get done in the House, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to name the passion projects that we probably both have, but...
And tell your senators to pass the Help Not Harm bill.
Yes. And another one that I would like to point out is, I know the two listeners are thinking I'm going to say the Maury Povich bill. Nope, it's the death by fentanyl.
Yes.
I thought that we prioritized the fentanyl trafficking bill last year. I thought we did a great job. I commend the House, the Senate, and the governor's office for getting that into law. But now we need to really jump on the
fentanyl kills.
Yeah, that's right. So that's folks who traffic fentanyl that results in a death can be charged with homicide.
Correct.
And again, I know there's some legal minds in that, but I think we've got enough lawyers in the House that can guide us in that and make it effective legislation.
Sometimes, I watched an old interview today with Ted Nugent, and it really made me think about things. And this is,
crap.
Yeah, it's going to get weird. But anyway, Ted Nugent talked about the Second Amendment, and he talked about, I wish that this woman in Massachusetts would have been able to just shoot the person that carjacked her or murdered her and not thought twice. This is a situation with fentanyl that is killing so many, not just people, but kids. And as the one pill kills is not a lie. And if we do not crack down hard and start punishing those that are peddling this, then we are failing our society.
Yeah, man. And again, we have talked to some of the mothers who've lost their kids, some of the fathers who've lost their kids, and just loved ones in general. So we have personally heard these stories, a lot of them from York County.
Yes.
And, we made a commitment to work to push this. And so personally, I think you and I will be working on that the remaining part of this session to try to get it done.
I'm ready.
So, all right. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thank y'all for listening. Until next time.
And thanks for our sponsors, 742 North. If you need workspace, desk space, an office, Wi-Fi, or a good cup of coffee, check out 742 North.
And Comer Distributing, who today's beer was Sycamore Southern Girl Blonde Ale with vanilla.
So if you like cream soda, you'll love this beer. Till next week.